Okay, welcome and thank you all for joining us for our webinar, Writing Effective Training Materials. My name is Sherry Hager and I am a Senior Consultant here at Information Mapping. Just to give you a little background about myself, I have over 15 years of experience in analyzing and streamlining processes, managing projects, coaching and developing associates, and designing and developing documentation, curriculum, training presentations, and web content for government, healthcare, computer systems, and service-related industries. Today, I will be sharing some great ways to make your learning content, training documentation, and course materials more effective. I'm very excited to talk with you about something that we as communication specialists do all the time, and that's try to determine ways to make our learning content more readable, usable, and concise. In this webinar, I will share with you some helpful steps for writing effective training content and materials that are task-oriented, user-focused, and primed for reuse. Now, before we get started, I have one thing to note. There will be a Q&A session at the very end, so if you want to enter any questions you have as we're going through the webinar in the question box here on the GoToWebinar panel, control panel, I will try to answer as many of them as I can at the end of the presentation. So without further ado, we can go ahead and get started. Just to give you a little idea of some of the things we're going to be discussing today, we're going to be talking about some of the challenges that are faced with writing training materials. We're going to talk about our solution, which not only includes our method, but the technology as well. Speaking of the technology, I'm going to give a demonstration of that, of our software, which is the FS Pro 2020. We're going to talk about some best practices, and then at the conclusion, we're going to have that Q&A session that I referred to earlier. All right, so let's talk about some of the challenges we face as we are writing training materials. Just like we saw a trend with the baby boomers as they were heading off into retirement, and there was a need to have to try to capture all of their information before they walked out the door. We're kind of seeing a new trend with the millennials that are coming into the workforce. They are very much a technology-based generation, and so they're used to having their cell phones and the social media and all of those kind of things. And we've noticed that their attention span is a little bit lower than that of the traditional employee. So we have to start coming up with some new ways of providing information in training programs. And some of that is through mobile delivery, micro-learning, which is the smaller bits of learning, whether it's a smaller video or little clip of a training program or something along those lines. And all of that can be kind of difficult because some companies have very complex materials that they're having and complex information that they're trying to get across to users. Another issue is updating content. Sometimes we have to make a lot of different updates very quickly. Another issue is being able to satisfy multiple audiences and having to personalize it. So we may have to give different levels of information based on who we're training. And then one of the never-ending issues is the challenging deadlines, and this can be particularly an issue when there's new technology involved, because a lot of times they're going straight from finishing the testing to rolling it out, and so we have to get individuals trained very quickly. Let's talk about our solution and how it addresses some of these challenges. For starters, let's talk about what information mapping is. We are internationally recognized, so we are used around the world in a number of different languages. It is research-based method. It's based on a number of different theories, and it ultimately is supposed to be able to make writing a lot easier, reading the information a lot easier. The information is supposed to be more accurate and then also more reusable. So really readers are able to understand what they are reading more quickly and easily with the information mapping methodology. Now when it comes to creating effective training manuals, we see that there are kind of three pillars to writing good documents or presenting training related information. It's the people, a method or process, and the technology. Now, a lot of organizations only kind of address one or two of these issues, but the information mapping methodology really allows you to address all three of them. The methodology itself is a solution that addresses the three areas in the fact that it is a process, it is a method or a structured approach to writing. And it provides people with the tools they need to present information logically and consistently. So we can train people on the mapping methodology so that they're able to use it. And then we also have our technology, or our FS Pro software, which has some of the methodology built in, thus allowing the users to focus less on formatting and more on the content of the training documents themselves. And in addition to that, it's an add-in to Microsoft Word, which I'll show you here in a moment. So it's already in an environment that a number of people are already familiar with. Let's take a look at the methodology in a little more detail. So for starters, I'm going to show you, kind of let you know what our vision is. At Information Mapping, we see the importance of information within organizations and the vital role it plays. We really, our vision, or what we think information should look like, is that it needs to be well structured. It needs to be clear and easy to understand. It needs to be consistent not only across departments, but within the organization as a whole. And that needs to be standardized so that people know what to expect and how to write it. So I want you to take a look at these two examples on the screen. If you notice on the left-hand side, we call this a wall of words. So as you're looking through the information, it would be a lot more difficult to find one piece of information that you're looking for. So if you need a specific answer to a question, it might be very difficult to find in the document on the left-hand side. It doesn't really allow you to be able to scan through information or find things very quickly or easily. On the right-hand side, that's a document where we have applied our information mapping methodology, which I'll kind of go into some of the specifics here in just a moment. But it really kind of chunks the information down into manageable units. So you can basically see that there are 3 different topics addressed here. And so, and each one of those topics has a label out on the left-hand side. So I can quickly scan down the document, see what topics it contains, and determine whether this document even has the information I'm looking for. If it does, then I can go specifically into that piece of information and only concentrate on what it is I'm trying to do or figure out. And I can bypass all of the other information. So it really speeds up the ability to access and use information. And we have 3 basic components of the methodology, and they're really kind of the foundation of the methodology itself. These 3 items are the information types, the research-based principles, and modular units of information. The information types help you to analyze the subject matter and categorize it according to its purpose for the audience. And we have 6 of them. It's procedure, process, principle, concept, structure, and fact. So when I go to approach a particular piece of information, if I know that I want to present a procedure, then the mapping methodology helps you identify or kind of determine the ways in which to present that information. One of the more common ways, which we'll see when we do the FS Pro demonstration, might be a step action table. So I generally know when I'm going to present a procedure, I have a way of doing it. So it not only makes it easier for me as a writer, but it also makes it universal across the organization. So I'm writing the procedure in a step action table the same way as, you know, another author is presenting a procedure. The next component is the research-based principle. They allow you to organize information effectively so that it is easy to access, understand, and remember. There are 6 of those as well. We have chunking, which really kind of comes into play with the micro-learning that I mentioned earlier, one of the challenges, the need to present information in kind of smaller units. That's exactly what our chunking principle is. It talks about chunking information down into manageable units of information. Then we have the relevancy principle, which is to present keep relevant topics together. We have the labeling principle, which I mentioned earlier in the before and after document I showed you. So it's to provide content-specific labels so the user can scan the document quickly. There's the consistency principle, so it's providing the same information the same way each and every time, and I'll go into that in a little more detail here in a moment. There are the integrated graphics, so that's using bullets or tables or videos or anything along those lines to present the information in the best way possible. And then the accessible detail, which this really kind of addresses that satisfying the multiple audiences or personalizing it. So that's really when you take the audience into consideration and determine what information they need and providing what they need where they need it. The next component of the methodology are the modular units of information. We don't use the standard paragraph for presenting information. We use what we call a block. And a block is a manageable chunk of related information. It's usually limited to one main idea or one topic. In the particular case in the example, it's talking about searching host employers. So we're not going to include any other information in that block other than searching for host employers. It usually consists of a sentence or a couple of sentences, a list, a table, some type of graphic or image, or maybe even multimedia like a video. It's generally separated by a couple of lines or maybe just some blank space, and then we're back to the label on the left-hand side that indicates what the content is going to contain or what that block of information is going to contain. Now, the block of information really kind of goes back to the micro-learning, so it's a perfect way to present manageable units of information or to present or to create micro-learning, which are those small little bits of training. It also makes it a lot easier to update content because you have these little manageable chunks of information, so it's easy to go in here and update a block of information. And then it also makes it very reusable. So if I have a block of information, I can use it in a training manual, I can use it in a job aid, I could use it in an online environment, any number of different ways I can reuse it over and over again. Now the blocks are collected into what we call maps of information. They're again going to be related or specific to just related topics. We're usually going to have a map title that will tell you what that collection of blocks is about. Let's talk about some of the benefits for the reader and writer. As you can see here, there are a number of different benefits. The retrieval accuracy is up by 32%. A big change is the initial learning, which is particularly important in the training environment. So there's an increase of 83% in initial learning. The way the information is presented it generally allows users to be able to learn far more quickly because they're manageable or chunks of information. And that reduces the need to have to retrain after the fact. Another big change is the decrease in supervisor questions by 90%. So that means that people aren't, not only one person is off task, but another person, a supervisor is off task when a user has to go and ask a supervisor a question or a team lead or even their neighbor. The time for your first draft, this is actually one of the areas that we see as one of the biggest problems for people when they're writing is just putting the first word on the page. I believe it's something like 50% of people don't know how to start a document. And this can be very challenging. We talked about those deadlines earlier. This can be where the deadline, if you're under tight deadlines, it can be a real big problem. But with the approach, it gives you a way of approaching the writing process. So it kind of speeds up your ability to be able to write the training manuals. And then some of the error rates, the reading time, the number of words are kind of all decreased. And that allows you to be able to update content a lot more effectively and efficiently. Right now we're going to talk a little bit about our software, FS Pro 2020. As you can see here, this is the document is open in Microsoft Word. FS Pro 2020 is simply an additional tab with some icons that allow you to be able to create documents a lot more easily, and I will show you that kind of, I'll do a live demonstration in our software here in just a moment. So basically you get all the same functionality as Word. It's familiar to at least 80%, if not more, of the users that are out there creating documentation. So it's just a very familiar environment and a lot easier for people to use. So that, again, saves time and can really have an effect if you're up against those challenging deadlines again. It allows you to focus on content, not on formatting. So we have a number of icons here that allow you to be able to create those maps and blocks that I was referring to earlier very quickly, just at a click of a button. And then some of that mapping methodology is kind of built in, so it allows you to be able to select options for procedures or processes based on or by using the software. So it kind of limits or narrows down your options so that you're presenting the information the same way each and every time. The software also allows you to be able to save maps and blocks as reusable maps and blocks. So instead of having to recreate the same map or the same block over and over again, you can simply save it in the software, and then it allows you to be able to select it from its drop-down menus, and it'll automatically populate it for you. So you don't have to go and save it somewhere else and then copy and paste it in. And it just allows, you know, it decreases the possibility for errors from having to copy and paste it from somewhere else. We also have a style manager, which allows you to be able to brand your documents. So it allows you to maybe make the map titles and block labels your company's brand colors. So it really gives it kind of a personalized feel. You can also distinguish manuals by color coding them. So if you have a safety manual, maybe your map titles and block labels are in red or something along those lines, whereas in another manual, maybe they're purple or green or some other color. We also have a template manager. We have a number of templates that are already built in. There's about 20-something templates already built into the template manager. But if you want to create your own, you can create your own and save it as a customized template. And the nice feature about not only the template manager, the style manager, and the reusable maps and blocks, but you can share all of those settings very easily with other individuals. So if I want to save it with the organization as a whole, I can put it out on a shared drive somewhere, and they're able to access that and download it themselves. We also have the ability to publish to the cloud. This is one of our newer features, and it's just amazing because it's all done behind the scenes for you. You no longer need someone to go out there and code out your document for XML or HTML. Literally at the click of a button, and I'll be demonstrating this shortly. At a click of a button, you're able to take your Word document and create a website from it. Right, I'm going to show you another before and after example. This one's a little more at the block level. So you can see on the left-hand side, we're kind of back to that wall of words and being able to try to find what information is there. You know, I can't even determine at this particular point in time whether it is what type of information is being presented. Is it just, are they policies, are they procedures, are they processes? And this allows you to be able to very quickly, the mapping methodology version or the map version allows you to be able to see very quickly that it's something that's actionable. So the information is presented, on the left-hand side it's presented in hard-to-follow dense text, and important points don't really stand out. So it's difficult for a trainee to stay oriented if they're trying to work from this particular document. Whereas the right-hand side, everything is stepped out for you. You even have some bullets in step 4 that kind of further flesh out some specifics. This probably would be a lot easier to read in the mobile delivery, and it certainly allows for much quicker updating of the content. Right, so let's talk a bit about being able to transform your document into a digital environment. So we saw here where we had our original existing source and we applied the information mapping methodology. So now we have a nice electronic Word-based version of it. And from there, using the FS Pro software, we're very quickly able to publish it to a website. And then from there, we're able to kind of take some of that modular information and publish it to a number of different types of mechanisms, so tablets or the handheld devices that we were talking about earlier, the phones, and those type of things. So it allows you to be able to push that information out very quickly and easily. And if you have the capability of developing user profiles that allow you to kind of send out or populate certain bits of information based on that user profile, then allows you to be able to customize your training that much easier, and then allows for easier updating as well. So I'm going to give you a demonstration of our FS Pro software. I'm going to leave our PowerPoint presentation here for just a moment and pull up a Word document. Again, as you can see, I'm in Microsoft Word. We have our FS Pro 2020 tab up here. And these are all of our different icons that allow you to very quickly create documents. In this particular case, I clicked on the doc or create doc, and it opened up a new page with my map title already ready to go and my block, the first couple of blocks already in the document. I can very quickly add maps and blocks as I need to just by clicking the icons. And as you can see here, as I do that, we also have a navigation pane that allows you to be able to navigate to the different blocks. It also allows you to be able to drag and drop them to move them around if you need to. So I can very easily, I know you can't really tell right there, but it did move that block from one place to the other. So it allows you to be able, and you can do maps, blocks, whatever, at the kind of the click and drag feature. So it makes it a lot easier to move information around in your document once it's created. If you have really long documents, that really helps as well, and then you can condense what you're looking at. If I don't want to see the blocks, I only want to see the maps, then I can condense it down. And it just allows me to be able to navigate a little more quickly as well. So we're talking about how the information mapping methodology is a little built in. So if I know I need to present a procedure, I can come out here and click one of the different options, one of the more common options for presenting a procedure, which might be a step action table, and it inserts the step action table for me. We can easily add and delete rows in the block or in the table. It also allows you to number them very easily. I'm going to go ahead and show you too, as far as a map goes, we have what we call as an overview map that might be at the start of your document. And one of the really nice features about that is that you can come out here and it will update your topic C page table with the maps within your document. Now I only have one here, so it only created the one map, but it automatically creates a hyperlink to them. All of the map titles and block labels are automatic they set up bookmarks as you create them. So it goes in and pulls those bookmarks and creates hyperlinks. So I can, if I'm using an electronic version, I can go click on it and go directly to that map title. We have some basic formatting that allows you to do bolding and underlining, those type of things. We just carried it over onto this toolbar so you don't have to keep clicking back and forth to the home page. Our style manage over here that I referred to earlier. And the part that I would like to get to now is the publish feature. I do have an existing training document that I already have created. One thing I do want to point out on it, I'm going to scroll down here a little bit, so excuse my scroll. But one of the things I wanted to point out here is I did include a YouTube video in this document. All you have to do is insert the link into the document, and when you go to publish it to the website, it'll automatically pull that video in. So I just kind of wanted to show you what you had to do before, and then I'll show you the after feature once we go ahead and publish it. I'm going to come back up here to the top. I'm going to click the Publish button. Oops. So why it wants me to save it, but we'll save it real quick. All right, so we're going to go to Publish. I'm going to give it a publication name. Oops, hold on. Oh my goodness. All right. It wants to act up on me today. It usually doesn't do this. All right, now it should let me do it. So we want to give it a name, Sample Group Training. I'm going to select a website. You can also do a web presentation. So if you have a Word document and instead of having to do a separate PowerPoint presentation, you can click the web presentation and it'll create a web presentation that you can access anywhere you have the internet capabilities. If you want to password protect it, you can certainly click yes and indicate what the password is. If you share the link to that website with anyone, you would have to provide them a password in order to be able to access the information. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the Publish button. And it's going to go ahead and do all the work for me behind the scenes. And it should prompt me here in just a second to go to the publication. So I'm going to click on it. And now I have my website with the training document already in there. So you can see here are my two maps. I have the administration map and the products and services. If I expand on them, I'm sorry, they're sections. If I expand on them, then I have the different maps of information, and as I click on each one of those, these are the different blocks, and I can click into that block by clicking here, and then once you're in, you can navigate back and forth through the arrows as well. As you can see on this particular one, here's that YouTube video that I had put the link into the document previously, and then it just allows you to be able to click on it.
With Unlock Your Potential.
All right. So the ability to use FS Pro software is really going to help with those challenging deadlines because it just allows you to be able to create documents that much easier with the click of a button. You don't have to worry about what my map title looks like or what my block labels look like. They're already bold, or however you set them up in the Style Manager. And then as you saw, it certainly allows for you to be able to deliver training via a mobile device. Let's talk about best practices. We see 6 different steps to creating effective training materials. The first one being understanding your audience, then categorizing information by type and purpose, organizing it according to your reader's perspective, being consistent, helping your reader find the information they need quickly, and reusing information where you can. So the first step in understanding your audience, we have found that obviously one size does not fit all. You have to present the information to your users in the way that they will best understand it, and organize it so the audience can find information quickly. This may seem like an obvious step to many, but it can be challenging with today's workforce since we are addressing a very different group of individuals now. And they're a little less experienced, they may have fewer skills, they may move between jobs a little more often, so you really have to work at design materials that get them the information they need and get them up and running and performing like veterans as quickly as possible. And that means that the training materials have to be very clear and easy for them to understand. You'll need to provide more support information, and it's just one of the challenges to make it as easy as possible for readers to find exactly what they need at the right level of detail for them so they can quickly understand it and act on it. And so some of the questions you might ask in order to better understand who your audience is who are they? What is their level of education? What skills do they already have or don't have? And what will they need to learn to perform effectively, safely, and compliantly? Our next step is to categorize information by type and purpose. So this is where those 6 information types come back into play. So just to kind of give you an example, if you were having to provide training materials on a car, some of the things you might consider when doing so would be, what kind of procedures do I need to include? Do I need to tell them how to change a tire, how to fill up the gas tank, something along those lines? What processes do they need to know? So kind of the higher level view, do they need to know how an engine works? As far as principle goes, or policies, those are kind of policies and rules. Do they need to know what side of the road to drive on? Do they need to know that they need to be wearing a seat belt when they're driving or not using a handheld device? Something along those lines. Some concepts might be, what is an airbag? So you might have to introduce anything that might not be familiar to them. And then structure is are those kind of parts or diagrams. So what are the parts of the dashboard? What are the parts of the car? What are the parts of the engine? Any of those type of things that the user might need to know. And then the fact might be something along the lines of, what is the maximum speed of the car? So when you're creating training materials, you need to clearly identify the procedures and make sure you include all the information readers will need to successfully perform each one of them. So what is the nice to know information? What is the need to know information that needs to be built around each of those, each one of the different procedures? Step 3 is to organize the information based on your reader's perspective. You always want to be thinking from your reader's point of view. You want to make sure that you don't bury any information anywhere. They need to be able to find it quickly and easily. And what we have found in the past, we've presented a couple different options to audiences in the past as far as how to organize their information: role-based, process-driven, subject-driven. And generally we find that, the best way to present information is according to the process, because that's how they think about doing their job every day. So it only makes sense that if they have to go try to find information, that it's arranged in the way that they do their job. Now, there are exceptions to this. If you have a, if you have a benefit booklet for new hires, that may not be, there may not be procedures involved with that, so that might be an exception to the rule. But for the most part, we have seen that the best way to organize information is based on the process. Consistency is key. Again, we're talking about not only formatting and structure, but terminology as well. Also the writing style. And in regards to terminology, if you see there on the screen, we have an item that can be called a handle, a paddle, a lever, or a joystick. So if you refer to them as all four, newer people who may not be familiar with the fact that it has four different names may be very confused in trying to perform a certain task or understand something if they're not aware of it. So generally, when you're presenting an item, you want to introduce it the first time it's ever used and then use the same word for it each and every time. And this goes, the same goes for formatting and structure. And that's where, again, that FS Pro software comes into play, because when we present a block label, it's presented the same way each and every time, the same thing for a map title. And this can be particularly helpful when you're dealing with complex source materials. Step 5 is to help your readers navigate through your information. You want them to be able to find things quickly and easily. If not, they may look elsewhere for the answers, or they may just kind of wing it, make it up as they go. This can be particularly helpful, again, when you're dealing with complex source materials. If you don't kind of help them navigate through the information, then they're certainly not going to be able to find it. It also makes it a lot easier for you to update content. But part of your task as a trainer is to train your readers to use and depend on the documentation. So that's kind of why this step is key. We feel confident that they can find their way to the information they need at the right level of detail for them, and they won't ask a coworker or supervisor for help when using the mapping methodology. Step 6 is to try to reuse information when you can. And it just allows it to be easily updated and revised. And you can repurpose the content for any number of different mechanisms, such as job aids, training manuals, online environments, any of those type of things. And like I said, it does make updating the content easier, and it makes it makes it quicker for you to be able to get changes out there, so that if you're up against those challenging deadlines we mentioned earlier. So let's take a look at all of this together. A kind of a checklist for when you're writing your training material. Ask yourself, have you assessed your audience needs? Have you categorized it by type and purpose? Is it organized from the reader's perspective? Is the language and format consistent? Have you made the information accessible? And is it presented in small, easily reusable units of information? All right, that concludes our webinar for this afternoon. I'd certainly be happy to take any questions anybody has about any of the content or the mapping methodology or anything along those lines. So again, if you guys want to use your questions option there on the GoToWebinar panel, and enter anything you'd like to ask, and I'd be happy to try to get an answer for you. All right, I think I see one coming in here. So it's just kind of asking a little bit more on how to manage the information into usable, manageable units. And the mapping methodology, not only at the block level, but that chunking principle really kind of helps you kind of keep that information in manageable units. And that chunking principle basically is, we kind of consider 7 plus or minus 2 bits of information. So in any given map, we're not going to want to include more than about 9 blocks of information. If we do have more than 9 blocks, then we want to start looking at breaking it out into multiple maps. And then if we're looking at 9 or 10 maps of information, then we might want to consider breaking those down into manageable units. And they can be any number of different things. So, you could break them down into smaller lessons, and then the lessons are contained in units or modules or any of those type of things. So it just depends on what you want to call them. As long as you're being consistent, as we mentioned a couple times throughout the webinar, as long as you're being consistent with the information, that's really kind of the key factor. So there's a question as to how it can be applied to, or have we applied it to every day? Kind of give an example. So one of the examples, we had an organization approach us last year that wanted to rewrite their training manuals. It was for a hotel chain who was rolling out their participant guides for the front desk. And so we kind of went through part of the mapping methodology. Like we said, it's not just those 3 components I mentioned where it's just applying an information type or applying the principles and using the new modulars of information. There's an approach to it, which you can learn through the different training sessions that we have or that we provide. We have a 2-day and 3-day training course depending on how deep into the methodology you want to go. So like the 2-day would be for someone who may not use it on a daily basis, whereas 3-day would be someone who writes on a regular basis. The approach that's taught in that class, we kind of learn to analyze the information and learn to organize it based, back on that audience, on how the audience is going to use the information. And during our analysis, we found that there was really too much being presented. So we're kind of back to that, chunking that information down and providing in smaller units of information. So that was one area. But then we also identified another issue in the fact that they were providing a lot of procedural information down in their practical exercises. So it was nowhere in the actual text of the participant guide. And we found that this made it very difficult if people needed to go back and refer to it. They had to remember where that practical exercise was for that information. So it made it a lot more challenging on the user to be able to go back and refer to it. And then if you had a change, can you imagine from a writer's perspective how difficult it might be to go in there and try to update the information? You'd have to know that it was in practical exercise number 24 or whatever the number would be. So in the final product, we really just kind of chunked the information down. We put it in a far more process-driven. We organized it according to the process as we indicated, as we mentioned earlier, presenting that information to the users in a logical way. And then pulled out all of that information, made sure that we included it in the participant guide where it needed to be for the user. So kind of as they're using their system, where they would run into that. So they knew exactly where to go back and look if they needed to access that information on the back end. All right, so I think we are about out of time for questions. So I'd like to thank you again for attending today's webinar. I hope that you have learned some useful information. If you have any direct questions or want more information on information mapping, the methodology, any of the training, we offer professional services, or the software, feel free to contact me. My email address is up there on the screen. Or you can also visit learninganddevelopment.informationmapping.com. And just to let you know, we will be sending out a recording of this webinar to you, so please be on the lookout for it in your inbox. Thank you very much, and I hope you all have a nice rest of your day.